Afternoon, committee. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I know we're waiting on a couple of committee members. They're in another committee. It's that time of year. We've got a lot going on. Amelia, are you online?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm here.
Wonderful. Would you mind, Senator? I think the committee, are we comfortable where we are on Senate Bill 149, or would you like an overview from Amelia of where we're at? I think everybody's comfortable. Thank you, Amelia. So, Senator Holland, do you want to hand out?
Yep.
Wonderful. Senator Holland, would you like to explain the proposed amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll review the proposed amendment section by section, and Amelia could dive into the weeds for those who have greater questions in detail. So basically, the way this is going to work, committee, is at some point a motion will be made to add this to the contents of 149. This will actually, though, have its own separate sections from the prospective 149 language. You can almost think of them as really two different bills, but just they'll be put in that same vehicle eventually. So basically, there's 14 sections in the bill. This is being referred to as the COVID-19 Retail Storefront Property Tax Relief Act. You can read the purpose of the bill. It's what we discussed this morning. Section 2 then has definitions for what a claimant is and qualifications for those businesses or individuals as sole proprietors who can or cannot participate. And then, so you see a variety of technical definitions there. And then section 3 then, on the bottom of page 4, committee talks about how basically for tax years 20 and 21, a claimant shall be eligible to make a claim if they operated in this retail storefront environment as we defined in prior section 2. And then there is a schedule on section B. It talks about basically that whatever we compute in the two sections on the form, they're going to get a refund of that back of 33%. Provided it does not exceed an overall amount of $7,500, which you'll see later in the bill. Paragraph C within section 3 basically talks about, this is the formula portion that for those businesses that were ordered shut down, either by the state or by a local, this is the formula used to determine the gross rebate amount for the ordered shutdown days. Paragraph D under section 3 has a similar basically computational provision for those days that the business was operating under quote unquote a restricted operation. And then you see really the rest of the section talks about, we're saying that here, by the way, you can't double dip. So whatever day you as a business say, either a shutdown or a restricted day, it can't be counted both. And we're also saying here too is that this act is very much intended as well for those businesses that were operating, but through the COVID went out of business. And so what this says is that for those businesses that ceased operations after March 1st, 2020, they will be allowed to apply for the tax rebate for tax year 20, but not into 2021, since obviously it won't be operating in tax year 21. And then you see the subsection or the paragraph G there about the maximum refund was $7,500. Senator Steffen and I offered that just because in case we've forgotten anything, not taking anything into account, didn't want to blow a hole or something we weren't anticipating. Section 4 then talks about just more technical stuff as far as what the claimant can claim. Section 5 talks about only one claimant per storefront is entitled to relief. Section 6 talks about Section 6 basically says that for tax years 2020, no claim can be paid or allowed unless you were in possession, the claim is in possession by the department owner before April 15th, 2022. Section 7 talks about the Director of Taxation is going to make these forms available to the claimants. And then Section 8 talks about the information, the reasonable proof to see if they qualify for the refund or not. Section 9, payable applied to the director. Oh, Section 9 talks about basically if for some reason the claimant has outstanding tax liabilities, that can be applied against that as determined by the Director of Taxation. And Section 10 talks about the fact that if they're actually delinquent property taxes, this would be for tax years 2019 or prior, that claimant will not receive the check, but instead that could be directed by the Director of Taxation back to the county to make up for that prior liability. And then you have Section 11 that discusses the fact that if it was filed with fraudulent intent, here are the ramifications and result of you doing something silly like that. Section 12 is just like the other circuit breakers we have, where if somebody went out of their way just to, get title of the property, specifically just to file this, that will be disallowed, obviously. Section 13, this is one change that we've talked about since this morning, is we have decided, because we're not quite sure where the monies are at, we're going to basically ask that the state, well, first of all, the state's going to receive these applications. They're going to pay the claimants in full who are entitled. The state will be on the hook for basically 2/3 of it. The county of record, i.e. the county from which the claim came, they are going to pay 1/3 of the refund back to the state. This is silent as to whether or not it's coming from a specific federal CARES money or whatnot. We don't know. So basically just assume general fund from the state, county general fund from the county. That's where the monies are transferring back and forth. And that's my synopsis, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Holland. Committee, are there any questions? Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking on page 2, item I, agriculture and aquaculture producers such as farms, ranches, and fisheries. We are saying that they are excluded. I thought that we had that discussion about agriculture producers such as farms, ranches, and fisheries actually also having sales, in-person sales. So are we going to pull that out, or are we going to include, or are we going to change the language so that it states such as farms, ranches, and fisheries that do not have retail sales?
I think I would let Senator Steffen respond to that, but I think that would fix the consideration that we had brought up this morning. Senator Steffen.
I think the intention was for it to be on there, right?
Yes, that we did not want to exclude anybody that had a storefront.
Let's ask Amelia if.
Okay, Amelia? That would be a simple change, correct, for us to add?
Madam Chair, I do believe you should add some language if that's what you intend, that those farm or ranch retail locations, if you want them to be included, we do need some additional language, yes.
Thank you, Amelia. We do want them, if I read the committee, we could take an individual vote on that, but I think there's no objection for that language being added, that if they were part of the shutdown, that they should be able to apply for this also. Would that be correct, committee? No objection? Okay. Yes, so we would like to add that language. Senator Holland, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do you just want to strike I? Or do you want to add the language? I mean, I'm not aware of any agriculture operation being shut down because of COVID or restricted, but I don't know.
I'm not aware of any either, but Senator Steffen.
Thank you. Again, like this morning, I recommended that we just basically add 2I without,
Resale, storefront.
without storefront retail sales to the end user.
Okay.
Amelia, would that language be okay?
Madam Chair, may I suggest something along those lines? If you want to add something to paragraph I there, if you want to leave that general agriculture exclusion, then maybe at the end of that, after fisheries, do a comma, but not including retail storefronts where such producers sell to consumers, sell directly to consumers, or something along those lines.
Yes, and we would give you technical leeway in order to author that. Okay,
Then,
yes,
Madam
Amelia?
Chair, may I suggest then at the time when it's appropriate, if a motion is made to include this language, that then there also be a notation with, the amendment to paragraph I.
Thank you, Amelia. We'll make sure and include any changes as part of the motion to this language that was handed out. Okay, Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, with regard to, since we're talking about that same where work is done, how did you address those individuals that lived on the premises, but a portion of it was actual storefront, such as, I think we heard hairdressers and animal groomers. We're assuming that's not in the same location, but how did you address that? Was that addressed specifically in this?
Thank you. Senator Amelia, is there language to spell that out? And if not, I think we could use language that's in the IRS tax code. It is.
There are provisions in this draft related to the fact that, I'm just looking for it here. In the definition of retail storefront, it does provide that it may consist of a part of a building. And also then when you look at the definition of property taxes accrued, it again references parts of buildings and would do, the taxes would be a percentage of the total property taxes compared to the total value.
So basically the square footage that's used for the business, is that?
This is similar language to what is in the current Homestead Refund Act. So I don't know if we have any representatives of the Department of Revenue here who could tell us how exactly they interpret that, but I would think that's a reasonable interpretation.
Okay, thank you, Amelia. Is there anybody from the Department of Revenue online? It doesn't sound like they are available. Senator, would you like to get clarification on that, Senator Baumgardner?
I'm comfortable. I just have one other question.
Yes.
On page 8, we have section 9B and we have section 10. I was curious how 9B differs from section 10.
Amelia, do you mind?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Section 9B is similar to the payment provisions of rebates that can be found in the Homestead Act, where if there are delinquent property taxes on the property, that the rebate is paid to the county treasurer and then applied to the delinquent taxes. So that's a similar provision here to what you could find in the Homestead Refund Act. Section 10 is actually an item regarding eligibility for these refunds or for this rebate. This provision provides that if there are delinquent property taxes for a tax year before 2020, so tax year 2019 or earlier, that if the retail storefront is owned by the claimant, then the claimant is not eligible for a refund pursuant to these provisions.
Senator Baumgardner, did that answer your question?
So just to be clear, on section 9B, it is saying that if they apply and they are delinquent in their property taxes, those will be applied to the oldest of the delinquent taxes. And section 10, I guess I see a little bit of inconsistencies because it says if there are delinquent property taxes, the claimant shall not be eligible. Is that? So section 9B is after the January?
Senator, I'm going to
2020.
call on Senator Holland. I think he has a response for you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I want to thank Senator Baumgardner for her catch. Amelia, I'm looking at these 9B as potentially being overlapping with one another. To me, the section 10 was specifically talking about tax year's delinquency for tax year 2019 or prior. So if we're talking about section 9B, the delinquent taxes, if we're excluding tax years 2019 and prior from eligibility, but to me, that would be talking about if you're delinquent in paying your 2020 tax bill. So I think we probably just want to strike 9B and just keep 10. I'm sorry, we probably want to strike 10 and keep 9B. That's what I meant to say. But I threw it.
Senator Steffen.
Yeah, thank you. Where 10 came from was that that we didn't want, if you had delinquent taxes in 2020, we didn't want you kicked out of being eligible in 2021. That's why that came along. So it gets what you're saying. This is about, you're literally not eligible if you have delinquent taxes from 2019 back. Because we were going to lose people. People were not going to be able to pay their 2020 taxes. That would disqualify them from participating in 2021, and we didn't want that to happen.
Right, okay, so
Senator Holland.
so I think we're saying this, Senator Steffen, basically, section 9B would apply to delinquencies for tax year 2020 going forward. Section 10 applies for anything 2019 prior and just excludes them from the program, correct? Correct. Yeah, so that's the difference.
Correct.
Senator Baumgardner, if that makes sense.
Senator Baumgardner.
I genuinely think I'm pretty good as far as being linear and sequential. But when I read 9B, it simply says, if you're delinquent, guess what? Any credit you have is going toward what's delinquent, regardless of the year.
It's,
So doesn't 9B address section 10? They're not going to get the money. It's going to go to whatever their delinquency might be.
Thank you, Senator. The section 10, if I may, they don't want them to even be eligible for the money, period, because the taxes were delinquent prior, thank you, to a pandemic. That's why the two sections are broke out.
so, but
Senator Holland?
maybe, because I'm tracking out with Senator Baumgartner, we really need to kind of flip the sequencing of that. It's almost like Section 10 needs to be like the Section 9B, and Section 9B becomes Section 9C. Because we basically want to say 2019 or prior to delinquent, you're out. And then the Section 9B becomes the third qual for saying, now, if you're still in the program, you're delinquent, then we're going to take that and apply that to what you owe to the county.
Would that make,
That'd be an appropriate change.
yes, Amelia?
Maybe I can help clarify this a little bit and make a suggestion, but just maybe to clarify, and you can tell me if this is what you're thinking. Because Section 9B is using language from another provision, it is probably not the most, it probably needs work in this context because it does talk about oldest delinquent property taxes. When in fact, when you read that in conjunction with Section 10, if there's a delinquency in tax year 2019 or earlier, the claimant's not going to be eligible anyway, so there is no rebate provision. So that is correct. So if you are interested in a situation, if you're thinking about a situation where a claimant makes a claim for, let's say, tax year 2021, and they are delinquent only for tax year 2020, they would still be eligible for the claim. The question would be, where should the money be sent? Would it go to the claimant or should it go to the county treasurer? And we could clarify there in Section 9B, maybe just make a reference to, tax year 2020. Instead of having that oldest first and most recent references. Would that help a little bit there?
Senator Baumgartner?
Madam Chair, I'm comfortable with Amelia making those changes. I think the reference I made earlier, when we have had lottery bills before us, we have added that proviso or that language that if you are behind in making child support payments before you receive that lottery award, anything, regardless of how long you are behind, will be taken out first. So I think we need to make it clear, and I'm comfortable with the language that Amelia is proposing.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, committee, if everybody's comfortable with the language, we can continue to work on the bill. I'm going to throw out another item that has been proposed and asked that the committee discuss. So we can dispose of this, and then I'll bring up the discussion on the other topic. Senator Steffen.
Where we don't have the proactive 149 in front of us, again, we're going to change the effective date to January 1 of 2022, correct? Okay.
That was the amendment that was offered this morning, that there would be no overlap between the retro and the prospective, so that there's a clean break, and that is the break, January 1st, 2022. Senator Holland.
Madam Chair, is this the other agenda item? Okay. Would you like to put this into and then address the third issue, or how do you want to proceed?
Into 149.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, Madam Chair, I would move that we take the contents of RS 2124 and with the two amendment modifications we discussed with Amelia, the addition to the language on page 2 on the additional phraseology for item I, and then for her to make the modifications on page 8, section 9B. I would move that we amend 149 with those items.
It's been moved, seconded. It's been moved by Senator Holland, seconded by Senator Steffen. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Actually, there's two items that's been brought up. Since we've moved on this, I want to make clear, Amelia, that there were several businesses that they were shut down, but they continued to do business as a drive-through or other means of doing business. They would not qualify for this rebate. Would that be correct? They should qualify even though they made record returns on their income? Senator Close.
Yeah, the question was in regard to where some businesses, just take for instance, a restaurant with a drive-through, they closed the inside down, but the drive-through, and because of maybe their area, other restaurants were closed, so they superseded revenues from years prior. And so are we going to help them since they did better?
Madam Chair?
She can hear you, Senator Close. Would you mind repeating it? Yes,
I
Amelia?
apologize. We couldn't hear you. I apologize.
Sorry about that. Anyways, the question arose about a business that maybe shut down the restaurant inside for in-person dining, but they had the drive-through, and maybe just their particular area, they had other restaurants that had closed, and as a result of that, their business actually superseded prior years. So are we giving this to help businesses in that situation as well, since they're, or are we trying to help just businesses that really need the help?
Senator Holland.
Okay, so that would be my take, and I'm not saying this is the right answer by any stretch, but when we talk about businesses being shut down, I mean, we talk about those businesses not operating. Okay? When we talk about restricted operations, we're talking about businesses who maybe they were ordered, their inside operations had to be shut down, but they could do curbside, or they could do carry out, or they could do whatever they wanted to do. Those to me would be businesses that be operating under the restricted operations section. And I really don't care how much money they made or didn't make. They would still qualify because they were hit by a restricted operations order. That's the way I would view this. I don't know if that's the committee's will. That's the way I look at it.
Any further discussion? Senator Close. Okay, Senator Holland. Senator Holland. Senator Close.
I don't know, it just seems to me that if, as a result of that, they're doing so well, why are we giving that break? It doesn't totally make sense to me.
Understandably, and this is a very serious issue. We're not snickering at the item or the topic by any means. I just want that to be clear. It is very important. We have businesses that we're losing as a result of the shutdowns. Senator Steffen.
At the risk of muddying the water a wee bit, I do understand that for the second round of PPP, you have to demonstrate a decrease in your gross income of 25% in one quarter.
Thank you, Senator. Any other comments? Committee, we can digest this. We're not going to kick this bill out tonight, so this is something that we can think about and consider for tomorrow. If you would like to bring an amendment forward, it would be in order. Committee, the other item that we need to consider that was brought to my attention is, this bill is about businesses that have been impacted by government actions. And the question was brought to me as to what happens when we have a government entity that sets up a business and is competing against private industry. So I know I'm kind of tossing this out cold, but I'd like to get the thoughts of the committee on this. Senator Holland.
Are we talking specifically about as it pertains to the retro piece, the prospective piece, or what now?
Just in general. The person that proposed the bill, Senate Bill 149, approached me this weekend and asked for another bill that, we have, say, for example, a school district, K through 12, who starts a daycare, and they're competing against all daycares in their area. So would there be some type of rebate program for the daycares in that school district's area that are competing against an unfair advantage, actually? Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are these school districts using, they're using the school funds to fund a daycare?
They're using a school facility and grant money, and they are competing against private daycares.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
It may not be an issue you guys are aware of. I'd like the committee to digest it, and we'll continue the discussion tomorrow, but I have been asked to take a look at it. Any other comments or questions? Senator Holland.
Just a couple thoughts. I guess to me, the separate of the issue of the government competing against the private sector, to me, that is an issue. So, I mean, yes, there are COVID and funding implications, but to me, that's kind of like something to me that is significantly separate from the concept of 149, be it prospective or retro. In regards to the restaurants, I think we can handle that one or two ways. We could either put in some sort of a test where you would have to test that maybe your income fell off by a certain percent. The other thing we could do, and I'm not advocating for this, but we do know that there are federal CARES money, some, 29 billion or something coming down for restaurants across the country. You could explicitly exclude restaurants from this. I'm not saying we want to do that, but we do know they're going to have their own pot of money to be distributed in whatever way the feds deem appropriate. So that's kind of maybe two ways we could go on this. Maybe if we went the income loss route, maybe there'd be a better way to go because we're not excluding an industry. We do know restaurants have been clobbered. And I want to be sure, in particular, our mom and pops that don't have national chain affiliations, stuff like that, I want to be sure they're at the front of the list for getting some relief. So maybe we would just go with a sort of an income reduction test, say 25% or something like that that you demonstrated, say, in 2020, over prior tax year.
Senator Close.
Well, even, Steffen had mentioned that the second round of the PPP, you had to qualify that you still showed a 25% loss of revenue. And so I think what you just mentioned would that type of language would probably be beneficial. We don't want to isolate, but at the same time, what is the purpose of this?
Yeah, I think a loss of revenue, period, not a percentage, might be more advantageous for the state. If I may, and I tell you, you guys know this, we know so many sole proprietors that were shut down. They've never collected unemployment. They've never been in this situation. Some of them working for 20 years with their own business. And they had some real fallout from these shutdowns. Senator Steffen.
Thank you. I think if somebody wants to offer an amendment as to some sort of qualifier in that respect, I think we should do it now, and I think we should keep moving forward with this bill. I think I think you could pick out isolated incidents for the next 10 years, and we're not going to accomplish anything. I think we should, if somebody wants to make an amendment in regards to it, let's do it, let's vote on it, and let's move forward with this bill, is my recommendation.
Thank you. You weren't in the meeting I was in 10 minutes before this meeting. So I respect your opinion, but I will hold off kicking this bill out of committee until tomorrow morning. So Senator Close.
Well, just by way of a last comment, I like the language of qualified. The reality is, if you look out there, some businesses benefited as a result of COVID. and others suffered. And I feel like we need to have some qualifier here, whether it's percentage or showing some sort of a continual loss.
How about a decreased income from the previous year?
Sure.
That be receptive? Okay. Do you want to make that as a motion?
Sure, I make that as a motion if they can show a decrease in revenue from the previous year.
Amelia, did you hear that?
You want to specify percent, Senator?
Madam Chair, I did hear it.
Do you need more clarification?
Can we flesh out the idea a little bit more in the context of, if you look at section 2, there are some qualifiers about having filed a 2019 tax return, being in operation prior to July 1st, 2019, and some annual revenue requirements. So are you interested in the state of adding to that list, experienced a decrease in revenue from the previous year or from 2019? I mean, because you have 2 years you're thinking about, 2020 and 2021. So I'm not sure what you might be thinking.
Senator Holland.
Inquire, Madam Chair, of Senator Close, would he be amenable to having to specify maybe some sort of a minimum percentage drop from 2019?
What are you proposing?
Senator, I guess what I'm wondering is that what if we added, Amelia, this would be added under section 2 as a qualifier, and basically just say demonstrated at least a 25% drop in income in either tax years 2020 or 2021 over tax year 2019.
If I may, Senator, a 25% drop is pretty hefty, and we may have people that weren't shut down for that length of time that would still qualify for this benefit.
Okay.
So would you actually, less than? Senator Close, would you? Okay, you want to second the motion? Would you make the motion again, Senator Close?
Okay.
Okay, Senator Holland will make the motion, Amelia. Oh, so wait a minute.
Yep.
Senator Close, would you withdraw your motion, your previous motion?
I'll withdraw it and go with the language.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Close. So the motion would be basically, received less gross revenue in either tax year 2020 or 2021 over tax year 2019. Does that meet your? Yeah. Okay.
Been moved by Senator Holland, seconded by Senator Close. Any discussion on the motion? Amelia, did you get that? Do we need to clarify? Okay, she's fine. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. So committee, we're going to continue with the next step, even though we're not going to finalize this. We have built the contents of Senate Bill 149. And I would pass these down, if you would. Thanks. There's a bill brief and a bill there. And I would propose, committee, you guys, I know we're in the final days of session. I'd give an overview. Amelia, will you give an overview of House Bill 2313 that we had a hearing on?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee. House Bill number 2313, which I think is being handed out to you as a refresher, would amend a current statute to allow the property tax exemption for up to 2 motor vehicles for current members in good standing of the Kansas Army or Air National Guard or a unit of the reserve forces of the U.S. military. You'll see that language on page 2 of the bill. And this provision would take effect from and after December 31st, 2021.
Committee, any questions on this bill that we heard? Committee, yeah, would you like to make the motion? Senator Holland?
The question, I'll make the motion. So is 2313 going to be the vehicle?
With the contents of.
So Madam Chair, I would move that we take the amended contents of SB 149 and place them in addition to the existing contents of 2313.
SB 149 as amended?
As amended, yes, and make a new bill titled Senate Substitute, no, yeah, right? Senate Substitute for House Bill 2313.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Senator Holland, seconded by Senator Baumgardner. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those nay. Motion carries. So Amelia, that would allow you to build the bill so that we can take a look at it for tomorrow? Okay, great. So committee, we will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in this room. Caucus has been rescheduled. And committee, I'm going to bring your attention to one other bill. I want to demonstrate Senate Bill 180. Amelia, do you mind giving an overview of Senate Bill 180?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senate Bill number 180 would provide a sales tax exemption for certain purchases by disabled veterans of the armed forces of the U.S. beginning January 1, 2022. Specifically, the bill would provide a sales tax exemption for sales of food and food ingredients, grooming and hygiene products, and household personal products to Kansas residents who meet the qualifications for a disabled veteran. There is an upper limit maximum of $35,000 per year per eligible person, and there were definitions of those different types of products. And I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, committee. Any questions? Senator Steffen.
Thank you. This was the one where it was a 50% or greater disability, is that correct? No.
It was 100% disability, is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, if you look at
Yes.
the bill, this definition included a disability compensation at the 100% rate.
Committee, I wanted to discuss this bill because the senator that brought it before us keeps saying that the committee won't move on it. Well, I want the senator to understand why we did not take action on the bill. And there were several things brought up at the hearing, if you guys don't remember. One of the main questions was, how would we implement this? How would our vendors implement this? That's why I wanted some discussion on the bill, and if the committee's wishes are to move forward, then we can do that. But I personally, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My concern during the hearing we had previously was the mom and pop grocery stores in all of our small town USA. If you're requiring them to come in and put a new computer system in, they're barely making it today. And I remember the discussion we had when, was it Amazon that was going to have the big problem, and they had to do it for, they wanted 2 years to implement on one product. Think about all the products this mom and pop would have to implement. I just think it's putting a burden on our smaller, I think a better way to do that would be maybe an income tax refund or some type of refund versus doing it this way.
Thank you. Senator Holland.
I want to echo Senator Alley's comments. I mean, as a small merchant myself with a winery, you know, we use Square to ring up our transactions. And I just see anybody presenting some sort of a sales tax exemption card, we're supposed to handle that on the spot. It's going to cause problems. And I totally agree with the senator. I would love to do something in this arena, and I wonder if maybe it would be better suited if we just basically provided them, like we used to do the food sales tax credit for folks that qualified on an income perspective. Maybe we can just do the same thing that if you are a veteran with some percentage disability, we're going to allow you to file when you do your annual tax return, you get a credit back for so much dollars. That'd be, basically reimbursement compensation for the items that the bill sought to provide for. So I think that's the way, probably a preferred way to do it.
No, that's what I wanted to hear the committee's comments. Senator Baumgardner.
I guess I'll give a counterpoint because I do know that we have a lot of our veterans that are students at the college where I work. And I think part of what we heard in testimony, if it's another form and another document that needs to be filled out, that will not happen. The stress that our veterans, particularly those with disabilities, the stress that they are living through every single day, it's not a myth, it is a reality. 22 suicides per day is the rate of our American veterans. And I understand that it seems really complex. How can we make this happen? And I will simply say, how is it that Oklahoma can make it happen, but Kansas can't? I think we need to find a way to make it happen.
If I may, Senator, Oklahoma has a different program. That's not the one that was proposed in this bill. This bill specifically spells out certain items that would have a sales tax break.
Right.
And the burden would be on the merchants to program their systems in order to have the exemption. I think that the committee absolutely wants to do something.
Right.
It's just this bill's not ready for prime time. Senator Close.
Seemed like in the hearing, I thought we were going to have some research done on some of the other places. Was any of that done? Did the senator that brought this, did he bring any of that?
Eddie, are you online? We didn't ask for that today. We can ask for that for tomorrow morning and see if there's, yeah.
I am online. I provided some materials to, I believe, to Michael a couple of days after that hearing, but I can dig those back up and send them back and have them for you tomorrow morning.
I'm sure you did, Eddie. You are always on top of things. Thank you so much. Well appreciated. Senator Holland.
I do have one research question for you, though, is because I understand the difficulty in filling out forms, but on the other hand, it seems to me that basically everybody in the state is pretty much doing an annual income tax return, whether you're disabled or not. And I would like to get some information as far as if we can find out from our service organizations, basically, what percentage of our disabled veterans are annually filling out an income tax return. I mean, I would assume that they have tax preparers or folks volunteering to assist them in these efforts, but they have to fill one out like everybody else. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Committee, other comments? I just know that with the time frame and when the bill was brought to us, that there is not, as much as we'd like to do it this year, I have a feeling it's going to be delayed till next year for the committee. But it does give us time to research and to find results, not just a Band-Aid for the solution. And Eddie, would you mind redistributing that to the committee so that we have that?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, committee. I just wanted to make sure that the committee was where I thought it was. And I think there are issues on this bill still. There's not one of us in the room that would not like to, there seems to be a miscommunication going on. For some reason, we are told that we can't have the room because Ways and Means is meeting tomorrow at 9. There's no caucus at 9. It has been rescheduled to 10 a.m. so that we could have the room at 9. So will Ways and Means be finished? Would you please? Thank you. Sorry, Michael. Thank you. So I want to make sure that we know that we have the room at 9, and then I will announce from the floor. I think the microphone's still open. Committee, is there any other business to be brought before the committee? I would sure like your input tomorrow on what you think about the comments that were made, where we're at on 2313. And with that, committee, I'll wait for Michael to return and we'll adjourn. Senator Holland.
So maybe another question for Eddie in the meantime. I want to be sure I understand this. As the sale tax rebate for the veterans is envisioned that in the Senate Bill, what, 180? Was that it, Madam Chair?
Yes.
180. Are there any possible conformity issues with streamlined sales tax with that, as that language currently sits? Maybe we talked about this, I just can't remember. Thank you.
Eddie, do you mind?
I would prefer to confirm that with Kathleen, but I believe that she indicated previously that these sort of exemption certificates do not pose a streamline. Oklahoma is a streamline member, and so to the extent that it kind of overlaps with what they do, it wouldn't pose that problem.
Thank you, Eddie, and we'll confirm that for tomorrow morning, too. Thank you. Committee will meet at 9:30 tomorrow morning, our regular time. Is there any other business to be brought before the committee? Seeing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.
So when did they move?